My daughter, she went running out of the room because I told her she couldn't take her horseback riding lessons. $20 a week for a group session. Couldn't afford that. I was broke. She ran out of the room. I thought she was running away from me. She actually ran to her bedroom to grab her piggy bank. And she ran back and she said, "Daddy, since you can't provide for our family, I'll be our provider." After selling those businesses, those first two, I was like, oh my God, I am God's gift to entrepreneurship. My ego just exploded. I look how rich I am. And I thought it was God's gift to entrepreneurship. And I acted like a total tool. I bought the houses. I got a place out in Hawaii. We took a sabbatical out there on Lanai, one of the smaller islands, got the cars, everything. And I said, oh, to sustain this new life standard, I need to run another business that is, just printing money. So I became an angel investor and I sucked. I actually call myself the angel of death. That's the only angel part I had going right. Started 10 companies, all of them collapsed. I didn't know what I was doing. They were in disparate fields. I was just throwing good money after bad. And it took me 2 years. I wiped out everything I had financially. I remember coming home to my wife. We still have 3 children. We had 3 children at the time, saying, we're going to lose our house. We're going to lose our cars. I've lost it all. And we did. 30 days later, we were out of our house and just lost everything. My daughter, as I was doing this, my daughter was 9 years old. I was sobbing. I was so ashamed because I'd been lying to my family by omission, saying, yeah, everything's fine. This business is starting to get traction. I wanted to believe that, but wasn't the reality. My daughter, she went running out of the room because I told her she couldn't take her horseback riding lessons. $20 a week for a group session. Couldn't afford that. I was broke. And she ran out of the room. I thought she was running away from me. She actually ran to her bedroom to grab her piggy bank. And she ran back and she said, "Daddy, since you can't provide for our family, I'll be our provider." And just think about that. I get emotional over thinking about it right now. That's when I take my final breath on our planet. I know that's the memory I'm going to have. It was so defining. I was so ashamed of myself. I was proud of her. It also became a trigger to redefine everything I knew about entrepreneurship, which basically nothing. I thought I knew stuff. I was lucky. I didn't know much. I've endeavored to be an author who studies what makes entrepreneurship successful, what the shortcuts are, the real shortcuts, the stuff that brings real results, and apply them in my own businesses. And the last little thing I want to put on that valley, it wasn't like the next morning I woke up after the piggy bank and said, oh, I've got this. I started boozing hard. I went through depression. I struggled for 2 years deeply, but the seed was planted. And finally became clear is that I need to document everything about entrepreneurship that I think I know and challenge it. And I'm maybe 1% of the way through it now. Profit First was one of the things. Clockwork was another. But I got a lot more stuff I'm working on to really understand what makes an entrepreneur successful, systematically successful, as opposed to by happenstance.
It's interesting. Our stories are actually a little bit similar. I got lucky through a software IPO, put a bunch of money in my pocket. It took me longer than 2 years to lose everything. It took me about 5 years to grind it in the ground. I almost lost my house. We ended up moving into a smaller house because I couldn't afford the big house anymore. I also thought I was a genius. Maybe not, maybe didn't buy all the cars and you were talking about, but mentally I was definitely the genius. And the thing is, you in general, you associate yourself, your identity is so wrapped up in what you do and as a provider for your family. And so when you can't do that, like the one thing you're asked to do, Mike, right?
Right.
The freaking thing you can do is
one thing
provide for the family.
One thing. I couldn't do it. And I remember saying I would do anything for my family. I'll always provide. And I wasn't.
Yeah.
And you're right. I was so wrapped up in the ego. I really thought I was a genius. I had something figured out. I had the swagger to my step, but also, it was dehumanizing. I was looking at other people saying you're less than me. And I'm grateful. I feel my experience was divine intervention, that I had to learn the greatest lesson in life, that we are all valuable, that we all contribute something. We contribute different things, but there's no one better or worse. I hope it ripped out of that ego out of me. And when it does present itself, if I have a big win or something, I can feel it building up. I'm like, hold on, let's revisit the piggy bank. And it keeps me grounded, I hope.
Yeah, it definitely keeps you grounded. The same thing was pretty humiliating when you basically everything you had, including your identity as a provider, is taken away. It definitely humbles. Yeah. And in my case, I was also called to share what worked and didn't work. I just ended up, in real estate.
It's fantastic.
It took me 15 years to figure it out. Now people can do it in literally a year. And you said you're 1% there figuring it out. You're kind of chipping away a little bit here. And let's talk about profit first, because it's one of those things, like I said, that kind of surprises you a little bit. And I think entrepreneurship is really hard. It really is. And what we all do, we can always work harder and we can always invest more in the business. And so we work our tail off and we
Yeah.
never really get paid. Okay. Because
Yeah.
everybody else and everything that's left over certainly doesn't come to us, because we should most certainly invest it back in the business so we can grow faster. And therefore, the entrepreneurs are basically poor people. Like, and so in many ways, in many ways. And so when I read your book, I was like, gosh, let's talk about that real quick. What is the premise of Profit First, and why should every entrepreneur, care?
Well, because so many entrepreneurs struggle. It's funny. I'll show you if I can turn the camera. I don't know if people watching or can watch in, but it says eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I have that in every working space I work. I've defined it as my life's mission. To your point, Michael, most entrepreneurs are impoverished financially, time-wise, a combination thereof, soulfully impoverished. We have this vision of what we want and this reality of what we're doing, and they are not the same. And I also believe every entrepreneur should be wildly successful. We are the biggest contributors to society, economically, innovationally, so many ways. So I'm looking at entrepreneurship, and I've surveyed people informally and formally who starts a business for financial freedom. And I would say it's over 90% of businesses are started in part or in full for financial freedom. Other people do it for personal freedom, do what you want when you want. Then I ask people, and I've done the data research too, who is financially free? And of the 9% who want it, maybe 1% is there. And I'm like, this is so confusing. We start this with a specific goal in mind, a clear vision, but no one's getting there. What's wrong with us? Like, do we all have a mind warp? And I experienced the exact same difficulties. When I was running my businesses I sold, they weren't profitable. They were break evens. And I was grateful when someone decided they saw value in it and gave me money for it. So I've been studying it, and one day it just flipped in my mind. It said, oh, there's nothing wrong with us. It's a system we're all told to follow. That profit comes last. The foundational formula for profitability is your sales revenue minus your expenses results in profit. And we even call profit the bottom line, the year end. It's all vernacular for saying it's the last consideration. And it's the human behavior that when something comes last, it means it's not important now. It's the manana syndrome. So most businesses say, not profitable this year. That sucks. Next year, I'm going to be profitable. And when we're not, it's the kick the can down the road syndrome. But we all pay expenses. Our expenses keep growing and growing because that is prioritized. Expenses comes before profit. In Profit First, I teach the method of flipping the formula. You have your sales, your revenue. Then you subtract the profit you've determined you want to take, and that will result in what's available for expenses. So it's the pay yourself first principle basically applied to business. And that's how we become permanently profitable.
I love that. And you're right. You're always, expenses keep growing and you never seem to turn the corner. And you're like, well, you can change it. You literally have the ability to change it. And
instantly. So there's this thing called Parkinson's law. All the work I do is rooted in behavioral psychology. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not certified, accredited, degreed in this, but I'm really fascinated about our mind operation. If we can understand how it's working, we can probably channel the outcomes we want. One of the big behaviors is this concept called Parkinson's law. Parkinson was a theorist in the 1950s studying human behavior and noticed that as a supply increases, we consume more. I just had a lunch and we had some sushi here in the office. And I got 3 rolls instead of my usual 2. Well, guess what? I ate 3 rolls. The more a resource is available, the more we consume. The more time we're given to work on an agreement, it takes us longer to get that agreement done. Now, the thing is with money too, and you may see this, it's almost uncanny. As you watch your revenue increase, Garrett and Michael, as you see your revenue increasing, it's almost uncanny over time, our expenses increase almost the exact same rate. And we're like, what's going on? How come I can't ever break to profit? And the reason is the psychology of Parkinson's law. The more resources available, the more we'll subconsciously consume. It's automatic. We have more money, we'll find ways to spend it and justify it. If we take our profit first, it intercepts that Parkinson's law behavior. And now we see less money flowing through the business and we adjust again automatically to what's truly available since profit's been taken first.